Hello and welcome to Ani Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. Candlelight Conspiracy. The grand dining room of Thorpe Manor glittered under the chandelier's warm glow, its opulence a testament to the wealth and status of its owner, Mr. Reginald Thorpe. Crystal glasses clinked, and the murmur of polite conversation filled the air as the guests took their seats around the long mahogany table. Holly Arnold, a young woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, observed this scene with quiet interest. Though she was here as a guest, her uncle being a close friend of Mr. Thorpe, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity at the eclectic mix of personalities gathered for the evening. Seated at the head of the table was Senator Edward Hargrove, a man whose political career was as illustrious as it was controversial. His wife, Victoria, sat beside him, her smile tight and her eyes darting nervously around the room. To the senator's left was Mr. Charles Bennet, a business magnate with whom the senator had recently partnered on a lucrative venture. Across from them, Ms. Lillian Carver, a rising star in the opposing political party, engaged in a heated debate with the senator, her words laced with thinly veiled disdain. Mr. Damien Wolfe, a journalist known for his scathing critiques of the senator's policies, scribbled notes discreetly, while Dr. Evelyn Sinclair, a renowned physician, seemed preoccupied, her gaze distant. Mr. Thorpe, ever the gracious host, ensured that the wine flowed freely and the conversation remained lively. As the first course was served, Holly couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. There was an undercurrent of tension, a palpable sense of unease that belied the superficial pleasantries. She noticed Mrs. Hargrove's hand trembling as she reached for her glass, and Mr. Bennet's forced laughter at the senator's jokes. Miss Carver's barbs were sharper than usual, and even Mr. Wolfe's question seemed more pointed. Only Dr. Sinclair remained silent, her expression unreadable. Suddenly, without warning, the room was plunged into darkness. The chandelier flickered and died, and a collective gasp rose from the table. "What on earth?" Mr. Thorpe exclaimed, his voice tinged with annoyance. "Must be the storm outside," he muttered, though the night had been clear when they arrived. In the pitch black, Holly heard the rustle of clothing, the scrape of chairs, and hurried footsteps. "Everyone, please stay calm," she called out, her voice steady. "Let's not move around. We don't want anyone to get hurt." There was a moment of silence, then the sound of a match being struck. A small flame appeared as Mr. Thorpe lit one of the decorative candles on the table. "There, that's better," he said, lighting another. As the candlelight spread, casting long shadows across the room, a scream pierced the air. It was Mrs. Hargrove. Her eyes were wide with horror as she pointed to her husband. Senator Hargrove was slumped forward, his head resting on the table, a dark stain spreading across the back of his dinner jacket. A steak knife protruded from between his shoulder blades. Chaos erupted. Guests leaped to their feet, some rushing to the senator's side, others backing away in shock. Holly, however, remained composed. She quickly moved to the senator, checking for a pulse. There was none. "He's dead," she announced, her tone matter of fact. "Dead? But how or who?" Mr. Thorpe stammered, his face pale. Holly stood up, her mind already working through the possibilities. "We need to secure the scene and call the police," she said firmly. "But first, let's make sure no one leaves this room." She turned to the group, her gaze sweeping over each face. "Until we know what happened, everyone is a suspect. Please take your seats and remain calm." There was a murmur of protest, but Holly's authoritative presence quelled any dissent. As the guests reluctantly returned to their chairs, Holly approached Mr. Thorpe. "Is there a phone I can use to call the authorities?" He nodded, still in shock. "In the study, down the hall." Holly made her way to the study, but when she picked up the receiver, there was no dialed tone. Frowning, she checked the cord. It was intact. Perhaps the storm had knocked out the lions after all. She returned to the dining room, her expression grim. "The phone's dead. We might be on our own for a while." A hush fell over the room. The reality of the situation was sinking in. They were trapped in a mansion with a murderer among them. Holly took a deep breath. "In that case, I'll have to start investigating. I need everyone's cooperation. Let's begin by recounting what happened when the lights went out." She started with Mrs. Hargrove, who was sobbing quietly. "Victoria, can you tell me where you were when the power failed?" Mrs. Hargrove looked up, her eyes red. "I was sitting next to Edward. When the lights went out, I reached for his hand, but he didn't respond. Then, when the candles were lit, I saw. She broke down again. Holly nodded sympathetically. "It's all right. Did you notice anyone moving around in the dark? I think I heard someone get up, but I couldn't see who it was." Next, Holly turned to Mr. Bennet. "Charles, what about you?" Mr. Bennet cleared his throat. "I was seated across from the senator. When the lights went out, I stayed put. I didn't want to bump into anything. I heard some movement, but I thought it was just people shifting in their seats." Miss Carver spoke up without being asked. "I was arguing with the senator just before the outage, but when it went dark, I froze. I didn't move until the candles were lit." Mr. Wolfe added, "I was taking notes. When the lights went out, I put my pen down and waited. I felt someone brush past me, though." Holly's interest piqued. "Brush past you? From which direction?" "From my left, I think, but it was quick, and then it was gone." Dr. Sinclair, who had been silent, finally spoke. "I stood up when the lights went out. I was going to see if I could help find a light source, but then Mr. Thorpe lit the candles, so I sat back down." Holly noted that. "So, Dr. Sinclair admitted to standing up during the outage. That could be significant." She then addressed Mr. Thorpe. "Reginald, you lit the candles. Did you see or hear anything unusual?" He shook his head. "I was focused on finding the matches. It was dark, and I didn't want to knock anything over. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary until we saw the senator." Holly surveyed the room again. "All right, thank you. Now, I need to examine the body and the scene. Please, no one touch anything." She carefully approached the senator's body, noting the position of the knife and the blood pattern. The knife was one of the steak knives from the table, suggesting it was a weapon of opportunity. However, the precision of the strike indicated that the killer knew what they were doing. Upon closer inspection, she saw that the senator's hand was clenched, as if he had tried to grab something. Gently, she opened his fingers and found a small piece of fabric caught under his nails. It was a dark blue silk, similar to the material of Dr. Sinclair's dress. Holly's eyes narrowed. That was a potential clue, but she needed more. She then decided to check the fuse box to see if the outage was indeed caused by the storm or if it was deliberate. "Reginald, where's the fuse box located?" "In the basement," he replied. "But it's locked. Only I have the key. Could you show me?" He nodded and led her down a narrow staircase to the basement. Using a key from his pocket, he unlocked the door to the utility room. Inside, Holly examined the fuse box. The main switch had been flipped, and upon closer inspection, she saw that the wires had been cut. This was no accident. Someone had intentionally caused the outage. "Someone tampered with this," she said, pointing to the severed wires. "This was planned." Mr. Thorpe's face paled. "You mean the killer did this to create an opportunity?" "Exactly," Holly confirmed. "Now, I need to find out who had access to this room. Only I have the key," he insisted. "But perhaps someone could have picked the lock or found another way in." Holly inspected the door and the lock. There were no signs of forced entry, which suggested that either the killer had a key or had found another way to access the fuse box. "Let's go back upstairs," she said. "I need to question everyone again, this time about their movements before dinner." As they returned to the dining room, Holly gathered the guests. "I have reason to believe that the power outage was deliberately caused by the killer. That means this was a premeditated act. I need to know if anyone left the dining room before the outage or if anyone has knowledge of the mansion's electrical system." There was a chorus of denials. However, Holly noticed that Dr. Sinclair seemed particularly nervous, her hands fidgeting with her napkin. "Dr. Sinclair, you mentioned you stood up during the outage. Did you leave your seat at any other time?" "No, I was at the table the whole evening," she replied, but her voice wavered slightly. Holly decided to press further. "Are you familiar with electrical systems, perhaps from your medical training?" Dr. Sinclair hesitated. "Well, I have some basic knowledge, but nothing extensive." Holly made a mental note of that. She then turned to the others. Did anyone see Dr. Sinclair or anyone else leave the room before the outage? Mr. Wolf spoke up. Actually, I think I saw Dr. Sinclair excuse herself to the powder room about 10 minutes before the lights went out. Dr. Sinclair's eyes widened. Yes, that's right. I did go to freshen up, but I was only gone for a few minutes. Holly nodded. And during that time, you could have accessed the basement. No, I don't know where the basement is, she protested. But Holly wasn't convinced. She decided to search the utility room for any other clues. Upon returning to the basement, she looked around and found a small toolkit hidden behind some boxes. Inside, there were wire cutters and other tools. Notably, the wire cutters had a fresh nick on the blade, as if they had been used recently. She brought the toolkit back to the dining room. I found this in the utility room. Does anyone recognize it? Mr. Thorpe shook his head. That's not mine. I have my own tools, but they're kept in the garage. Holly examined the toolkit more closely and noticed a monogram on the side, E.S. Evelyn Sinclair. Dr. Sinclair, is this yours? She asked, holding up the toolkit. Dr. Sinclair's face turned ashen. I don't know how that got there. I didn't bring any tools with me. But the evidence was mounting. Holly decided it was time to confront her. Dr. Sinclair, I believe you had both the motive and the opportunity to kill Senator Hargrove. You were opposed to his policies, which threatened your medical research funding. You had access to the fuse box, as evidenced by your toolkit found there, and you were seen leaving the room shortly before the outage. Furthermore, the piece of fabric found in the senator's hand matches your dress. She held up the scrap of silk, and indeed, it matched the tear on Dr. Sinclair's sleeve, which she had tried to conceal. The room fell silent. Dr. Sinclair looked around, her composure crumbling. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. He was going to ruin everything I've worked for. I just wanted to talk to him, but he laughed at me, said I was powerless. When the lights went out, I lost control. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. The other guests stared in disbelief. Holly stepped forward. It's over, Dr. Sinclair. The police will be here soon, and you'll have to answer for your actions. Just then, the sound of sirens could be heard in the distance, growing louder. The storm had passed, and help was on the way. As the police arrived and took Dr. Sinclair into custody, Mr. Thorpe approached Holly, gratitude in his eyes. Thank you, Miss Arnold. Your quick thinking and detective skills saved us from a terrible fate. Holly smiled modestly. I was just doing what needed to be done. And with that, the Candlelight Conspiracy was unraveled, the truth illuminated by the sharp mind of a young detective. The end. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.